Hey everybody! The purpose of this video is just to get you some solutions to the copier problem that we were working on in class yesterday. I know we went through it in class, but I also know that maybe you want to see it a second time, and also some of you couldn't have made class yesterday, so I wanted to make sure you had a resource to kind of work from. So I emailed you I gave you the original copier problem on Monday of this week. I emailed you Monday afternoon a better version of it. The big takeaway from this problem is that you're looking for ways to multiply fractions to get to 1. Because if you can apply percentages in sequence that create a copy to get back to its original size, then that's the same as multiplying a bunch of fractions together that equal 1. Okay, so for example, you start with 100%, then shrink it back to 50%, and then double this size, that gets you back to 100%. So in the email that I sent you, we talked why 1/2 times 2 over 1 equals 1. And also why 2 over 1 times 1 over 2 equals 1. Okay, that was the big takeaway from that. What I want to do is apply that to the problems that are here. The first question that I was on the homework was, what if you break the 50% button and the 100% button? Now, if you remember from the little email that I sent out, I gave you some fractions that the percentages were equal to. Forget 128. That was also a hint I gave you. You don't need that one for a while. It's only there for what is now an extra credit problem. Okay, so those are the 4 fractions that you really have to kind of work with right now. Now, the reason I like this problem so much is it forces you to not just think math, but also think logic. Of these 4 percentages, and even if you left the 128 in there, of those 5, one of them is very special compared to the other ones. And hopefully you'll get it when you look at what happened up here. 1/2 makes the original image smaller, 2 over 1 makes it bigger. Bigger, smaller, original. Smaller, bigger, original. The big takeaway is you really need to have at least one of the buttons be smaller and at least one of the buttons be bigger in order. Because if the 100% button doesn't work, that keeps it the same size. Any other button is either going to make it bigger, which then needs to be made smaller, or it's going to make it smaller, which then needs to be made bigger. One of those two things has to happen. Knowing that gives you a vital piece of information. You have to use the 10% button, right? You have to. In any problem here going forward, you have to use that 10% button. It's the only one that's below 100%. So you know right away, for number 1, that you're going to have a 1 out of 10 on it. You're going to have a 1 out of 10 times something, times something, times something, times something. Okay. Now, another way to view that is 1 out of 5 times 2. Because 10 is 5 times 2. We spent a lot of time in class talking about the multiplication of these numbers to get that 10. So keep that in mind. The reason I write this here is because you really want to keep an eye on these in the denominator. Because when you multiply by another fraction, you're going to want to have these 5s and 2s up in the numerator. So looking over at the fractions we have to choose from, do you see any that have 5s and 2s in the numerator? And the answer is, heck yeah, they all do. You got a 5 over 4, a 2 over 1, and a 5 over 2. Now, I'm going to do this video solution a little differently than we did in class. Because in class I had you all lead me and you all picked. I'm going to pick for us, and here's why I picked the way I did. That 2 right there is the only one of these fractions. Excuse me, that 200% is the only one of these that has a 2 in the numerator. So I'm going to go with that one next. 2 over 1. 2 over 1. Okay? That means, let me grab some other colored chalk. This is orange. I'll go with maybe pink. That means that 2 will cancel that 2, and that's good. We still have to cancel a 5 though. So we're now going to need another fraction that has a 5 up top. Now we've got 2 to choose from. We've got 2 to choose from. We can either use 5 over 4 or 5 over 2. Now in class, we started by trying 5 over 4. But remember, the hint on this one was you can do it in 4 steps. 5 over 4 would actually make us have to use 5 steps, because if we did, don't want to write this down and then erase it. If you did 5 over 4, you've gotten rid of the 5s for sure, but now you've created a 4, which means you'd have to cancel it with something with a 4 in the top. Well, you don't have a 4 in the top. You've got 2's in the top, so you'd have to use 2 2's to make the 4. So rather than use 5 over 4, use 5 over 2. That takes care of the 5's, and then you've got one more 2 to get rid of. You can't use this one again, you already canceled it, so you've got to have to use one more 2 over 1. And now everything cancels, and you're left with 1 over 1, which means you're back to 100%. So in percentages, you had to do a 10%, a 200%, a 250%, and then a 200%. And it doesn't matter. The order does not matter, as we talked about. We talked about this in class. If you're watching this and you weren't in class, you didn't hear this. Order doesn't matter. These fractions would cancel regardless of where they are in order. Cool so far? All right, good so far, good so far. All right. Now number 2 is very similar. But number 2, if you recall, they take away the 250. Excuse me, the 200. They don't let us use the 200 anymore. So now, we are stuck with this. Did I just lie to you? Is it 250 or 200? Nope, it's 250. Shoot, I'm so sorry. They take away the 250. We can't use the 250, but we can use the 200. Whew. As soon as I looked over, I realized that was a mistake. So that means this solution won't work anymore, right, for number 2? But we know for number 2, it has to start with a 1/10. We've already decided why. We can't use this, and we can't use this. So the logic of using 5 over 2 to cancel that 5 down here is no good. So the only way to cancel the 5 down here now is 5 over 4. And now we're literally going to be in the situation I told you about previously was, what if you used 5 over 4? It still works. You just can't do it in 4 steps. It takes 1 extra. And I just dropped my chalk. So this one, the 5 will cancel with this 10, and this leaves a 2 behind. But now you've got 2 down here, and then 2 here and 2 here. You've got 3 2's in the denominator. But that's okay, because I told you in the homework I sent you, you have 3 fractions, and you just put 1 2 above each one. This 2 will cancel that one, and these 2 2's will cancel both of those 4's. So in buttons, 10%, 125%, and then 200% 3 times in a row gets the job done. Okay? Now, the third one I am not counting as part of the normal 10-point homework. It's too hard. I should have realized that before I gave it to you on Monday. I'm offering it as extra credit for you. So we talked about it in class. You can chat with your classmates about that. So number 3, the one that requires 11 button pushes, extra credit. I did add a new question to the homework while we were discussing it, though. It's not on the original sheet. It's after you answer the last question. The last question down here says, what if the 200% button breaks? Excuse me, what if you are left with just 2 buttons, 125 and 128? So what if you get down to this right here, and there's only those 2 buttons left? Can you make a copy? The answer is no. Based on everything we just talked about, you have to have a button below 100% to get it down. My question that I added to the homework was, suppose you only have those 2 buttons. Make up a new button, less than 100%, that would be able to cancel this one's button and get it back down to 100%. So in class, we chose 125, 125%. So this is number, I guess this is number 5 on the homework, even though it didn't go to number 5. We made this one up in class. We chose 125%, which is 5 over 4. To get that back to 1, you just have to multiply it by 4 over 5. That would be the button you need. But as a percent, what is that? 80%. 80% gets the job done. 80% is 4/5. So if you had an 80% button and a 125% button, you can get the job done. We also discussed what if you wanted to undo the 128% button, but as soon as we started talking about it, it made people sick to their stomachs and we stopped. So I challenge you, if you want to work on it a little bit more, you can work on that too. But hopefully this helps. It's kind of a quicker version of what we did in class yesterday, but it's the same exact stuff we did talk about. And like I said, I hope it helps, and we'll talk soon. See you in class.